Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Timeout with Derek and Joe. For Joe Azalina, I'm Derek Cannell, and we're going to do something a little different today. We have a shorter episode, about 30 minutes. Um, we're going to be starting something up that we're just simply calling top five lists, and it's going to be stuff all around the world of sports in terms of our top five list. So we each wrote down, well, some a little more than five, but we tried to keep it to five or so. Couple honorable mentions, but so today we are talking about top five sports movies. For those of you on Facebook, we sent out the a little question yesterday between Joe and me about your favorite sports movies and stuff you grew up on, and whether it be a great movie that won Oscars or just a guilty pleasure movie. I will say that I don't know about Joe, but in terms of, I do love sports, but another big love of mine would be movies. I've always loved movies, and I just love the fact that um, all movies are subjective. If Joe says he loves something on his list, and I can't say, well, you're stupid, you're wrong, Joe. That's not a good movie. Well, that's Joe's opinion. He likes that movie. I like my movies. So I just like that it's all movies are subjective, and of course, uh, there may be some spoilers here. So if you don't want to hear spoilers about the movie, just pause it for a little bit before we're done. But
Try not to do it
uh,
too much.
yeah, we won't go too in depth. But Joe, we'll start off with you. And what do you have for your top five sports movies?
Well, I'm going to go with honorable mentions first because I thought, as Derek said, we tried to go to five. I did top 11, so five honorable mentions and six tops. So that's what we got a tie there. But anyway, yeah, this is going to be a fun, definitely a fun topic, and we definitely want the fans or our audience, I should say, to definitely get into it with us. But me and Derek actually have four of the same and one in my top five. So I'm going to go with my number five honorable mention, and that's a movie in 1993 called Cool Runnings. Main actor was John Candy. He was the coach of a bobsled team. Dougie Doug was one of them, also a main character. As again, I won't go into too much detail because Derek has this, so I'll let Derek take that away when he has his movies. But Cool Runnings was one of my favorite Disney movies when I was definitely younger. And in '93, I was about, third or fourth grade. So Hoosiers would be my fourth honorable mention. That was in 19. It looks like I think I had down here 1983. I saw it a little later on. Derek, again, like don't want to do this too much to you, but another one that we maybe have the same. Gene
No
Hackman
problem.
plays the basketball coach. It's a true story. It's an underdog story, you know. But I'm gonna leave it there. It was a great movie. I saw it in the theater, I remember, and I thought I saw it probably in the college age. I went with a friend of mine, I remember. But anyway, that was one of those movies that you cheered for. Like I remember, like a basket scored, and I was like cheering, like it gets you into it. Number three, I can go in a little more detail with because I don't think Derek has this one, but it's the Bad News Bears, 1976. Walter Matthau was a great actor back then in his this is definitely one of his better movies, I would say. He coached the baseball team, but he did it like unwillingly. He didn't want to coach. He was a drunken old man who could care less about kids, and that's what he did. He coached this ragtag baseball team. It ended up to be that Tatum O'Neal was his stepdaughter, and she I'm really having a hard time remembering her first name in the movie. Um,
Ugh,
uh, I
no
cannot remember
idea.
her first name. It's going to come to me probably when you're talking, Dave. No, but so they got her to pitch, and she had a great arm. And it showed us, even at that time in the U.S., that like girls can do anything boys can do. So like that was cool to see. Some interesting characters I remember is the catcher. He always wanted to eat, so the guy was eating all the time. He would have his bars and he would just eat. And then there was a guy in center field that was fast, uh, Ahmed, and he was a good outfielder and very, very, very fast at the plate. If you laid out a bunt, he was going to beat it out. So if nobody watched it, even though it's such a long time ago, I say the Bad News Bears was one of those stories that you just rooted for again. That was one of those, inspirational stories. I'm not going to tell you if they won or lost in the end. Number 2 was Moneyball, and this was, as all of you know now, I'm a huge baseball fan. It was 2011. Brad Pitt was the main actor, played by Billy Bean was actually what they did it for. Brad Pitt played Billy Bean. Jonah Hill was also in it, which made it hilarious at times. But he just the Oakland Athletics in Major League Baseball do never have a lot of money, and it showed what you can do with little money and just different players that were in it. I think David Justice might have been in it at one time. They had Scott Hatterberg, for the baseball fans out there, was in it as a first baseman. So
Was he
yeah,
really the first one to get into the analytics side of the game, Joe?
yeah, like they were such forward thinkers, right? Now we see this starter coming out of the bullpen, and you see these things that you bunt and you move guys over. That's like people hit home runs. That's how you score runs, right? I mean, so no, not anymore. You move guys over and you play small ball, as they say. But yeah, you're right. Analytics was such a great thing for this movie, and just the way it was shot and the way things happened in the movie. Like they had made a big trade, and Jonah Hill didn't want to go tell one of the players, and I'm like, does this really happen in major leagues? That like ownership doesn't want to go talk to players? I mean, I guess it could, right? Like if you have a close
Yeah,
relationship with
I'm
someone.
sure some of it was dramatic effect, but like, why would
A little
Jonah
bit
Hill
more,
be the
yeah.
one to go tell them?
And he was the assistant, of course, to Billy Bean. That was the whole thing. And they like were buddies then. They like grew together, and that was a cool thing to see that happen. The number 1 movie, and man, did I really have a hard time not putting this on my top 5, but we'll listen to my top 5 in a little bit, is Field of Dreams, 1989. I was 6 years old when it was filmed, but I got to know it over the years. And this, as much as Bad News Bears, when it's on MLB Network, I watch it all the time. Ray, I want to say Ray Liotta, maybe, or yeah, because
Leota.
it's played by Kevin Costner. The old time baseball stars like Shoeless Joe Jackson and all those guys are mentioned in it, and how they build this. If he builds it, they will come. Like that was like one of the favorite lines, right? Terrence Mann, played by James Earl Jones, that was a big thing too. How he went to his house in Boston, and the guy didn't want to have anything to do with him. Like it was pretty witty how that happened. But I'm sure a lot of our audience does, as me and these movies are timeless and they're still on at times, and so we always get a enjoyment out of them. And so that's my honorable mention, top 5. And Derek, we're gonna go to my top 5, which is gonna be debated for around my family and friends because they all think I'm nuts. But number 5 is Rocky 1, which I had to put in there, 1976, way before our time. Sylvester Stallone played the great Rocky. The trainer was Burt Young. Played Paulie was his name in the movie. I mean, I just think of Rocky and Apollo Creed. I think of the shorts. I think of there's so much symbolism in the movie, as I learned that in a film class I took at the community college, actually. Rocky 1 was again a timeless movie that, as they keep going in the series, right? 2, 3, 4, Ivan Drago, the whole, and
Right.
Creed helps him in the end. Like, it's just a great movie. Number 4 is absolutely one of my favorite movies of all time, and it is The Sandlot. And it's not even close for me. Like the 1993, Tom Geary played Smalls. We got Benny the Jet Rodriguez, Mike Vitar played him, and Hamilton Porter was played by Patrick Renna. What a great movie! The kid comes in at a house with his mom in a small town. I'm kind of forgetting where it was, but we'll just say somewhere in California. I want to say.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Okay. Because Benny the Jet then plays with the whole thing.
Right, the Dodgers.
Right. So Smalls comes in and he doesn't have a friend. He's doing his stuff in his room, and his mom goes, "Go make a friend. Go get dirty. Go." And the sad thing, I think, in the beginning, we find out that his dad had died, so he had a hard time with that. And his stepdad comes in, and he's not like always around, and there's a whole thing with that. And then, but Smalls makes friends, and he makes friends with this group of guys. And Smalls has no athletic ability. He can't even throw a baseball. So that's one of the greatest scenes, right? Squints Palladores, one of the greatest characters in the movie, gets in trouble with a girl at a pool. That's another funny part.
Right.
So,
Wendy.
Sandlot is another one where it shows you, and I think James Earl Jones is also in that as the neighbor and the dog and that whole situation. But it just shows you too that maybe as a kid you're gonna forget that, like, those times, like, you have to try to make friends, because if you don't, what are you gonna do with your childhood? And this kid made a lot of friends, and he finally ended up getting out of that town. And again, I'm not going to ruin the rest of the movie, but that was The Sandlot. Number 3, another Disney movie. See, I love Disney. 1992, The Mighty Ducks. I mean, come on. Emilio Estevez.
The original Mighty Ducks.
Thank you, the original one. Played by Gordon Bombay, who did not want to have anything to do with these kids that he's gonna coach, because he got in trouble in like a alcoholic car situation. I think he was pulled over for drunk.
I guess you could say it's a very similar to a Bad News Bears type movie.
Exactly. The character's not so much. Joshua Jackson, who a lot of people remember as Dawson's Creek, actually. An aside, Dawson's Creek is now on Netflix. I'm watching it again. I love Dawson's Creek. But just so the listeners have to find that out, I guess. But Joshua Jackson, played by Charlie Conway, who Gordon and him get to be buddies. And Charlie's mom and Gordon, of course, get together a little bit. Little romance there. Like a ragtag bunch of kids that end up having to face Gordon's old coach. God, I mean, you got to have the drama. So they're going to play the Hawks. And, The Mighty Ducks was one of those movies that they did 3 times. And I always said the second one, the third one was good. But the first one was the original. Goldberg, the goalie, the big guy from Philly. Like, that was another big actor in it. And Aberman would be like, swing, blah, 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 swing. Blah, blah. So Aberman was another really cool character. So I would say Mighty Ducks had to be on my list. Number 2, I have a tie. So I have and Derek couldn't believe it, but I have a tie. Remember the Titans and The Blind Side. And I did it because both are inspirational football movies. Well, both are so different, I couldn't decide who to knock out. So The Blind Side is a true story about Michael Orr. It was a great, Quentin Annan played him. Leanne Tui was played by Sandra Bullock. It's one of my dad's favorite actresses, actually. So shout out to Big Tom there. And Tim McGraw played the dad in that movie. So good actors and actresses. And again, that's just such a good story. The Blind Side. It was one of those movies that captivated you throughout the movie. You just never knew what was going to happen next. And then in the end, it was unfortunate of the events leading up to him going to college. But again, true story. Played in the NFL for the Baltimore Ravens, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure he was a Raven. And remember the Titans, 2000, Coach Boone, played by Denzel Washington. He's one of my favorite actors. And Jerry Bertier, played by Ryan Hurst. Again, one of those movies that African Americans and white people would come together, and that's what the movie definitely did. And it showed us, again, timeless. We're still going through stuff like that today.
Mm-hmm.
Number 1, as Derek needs to get to his, and we're trying to make this a shorter show. Number 1 is the movie Rudy, because again, being a Notre Dame fan, I have to do it. Played by Sean Astin, Rudy 93. Charles Dutton played a guy named Fortune. That was a very big thing when Rudy got out to Notre Dame. But nobody thought, and nobody gave Rudy a chance. One of the most underdog stories if you ever want to be inspired. I love to watch it before football season starts. but yeah, so Rudy ends up to be my number one. So Rocky, Sandlot, Mighty Ducks, Remember the Titans, and Blindside, and Rudy are my top five, Derek. And now I need a
Six.
drink. Six.
Hey, some great movies in there. And I will say, so I don't have the Sandlot. I always loved the Sandlot growing up, The Beast, and and but yeah, and Remember the Titans, and yeah, that's kind of always known to be a timeless movie. Um, Unfortunately, still dealing with stuff like that nowadays, but um, so I will say that my list is going to look a little different. First of all, because I have two honorable mentions and a top five. But you might say that some of mine are not huge sports movies, but sports are involved and they are a part of the plot. So as long as they were a part of the plot, I thought that that was important to put them in there. But so the first one I will say, one that Joe actually left out. My first honorable mention is A League of Their Own. So A League of Their Own came out in, oh boy, I don't know if I have that detail, but I would imagine it was the 80s at some point, but or maybe the early 90s. But Tom Hanks and Gina Davis were the leads. So it was about a women's baseball league that was created when a lot of the men went off to World War II, so the people that stayed back wanted to be entertained, so they put the women out there. Of course, they thought it was more going to be more of, well, let's throw the girls out there with their skirts and whatnot, and we'll watch them try to play baseball. Well, guess what? Some of them really enjoyed playing baseball, and some of them were very good. You had people like Rosie O'Donnell and Madonna were in there, and now there actually is a in the Baseball Hall of Fame there is a section dedicated to this league. Another thing I will say, you will see a lot of mine are based on true stories, whether or not they're actually completely the truth, whatever. But they were good movies nonetheless. But so that was my first honorable mention. My second one is one a lot of people may not have heard of, but so it's called Foxcatcher, and it came out in 2014. It's basically surrounded by three leads. Steve Carell. I mean, if you don't know Joe, The Office is one of my favorite TV shows. So watching him in this role was very eerie and weird to see. But Steve Carell, Channing Tatum, and Mark Ruffalo. Um, Steve Carell plays John DuPont, who is the owner of the DuPont fortune, which is in somewhere in Pennsylvania, if I recall. Um, but in the 1988 Olympics, he decided he wanted to make his DuPont ranch, which is this huge place, to be where the Olympics training facilities were. So, and partially because he grew up with no friends, no nothing, so he's kind of socially awkward. But and I won't ruin the story, but it's very intriguing. And so Channing Tatum and Mark Ruffalo's characters are wrestlers, and they end up going to this ranch where John DuPont is it's his ranch, and um, I guess the point of that is to really stay true to yourself, because Channing Tatum's character is overshadowed by his brother Mark Ruffalo's character, and he just always is looking over his shoulder like, I need to top him, I need to do things myself. And so but that's a very, I would recommend it if anyone hasn't seen Foxcatcher.
I haven't seen it, and I want to ask you: could you see it on like Netflix or on demand?
I don't know if it's on Netflix. I know there is a documentary. it's called Team Foxcatcher. I mean, it's not a movie. It's just about
Yeah,
what actually happened, but
it's
that's
interesting.
on Netflix.
Okay.
Um, so my number five was on Joe's list, and this is more for a sucker for a good a classic Disney formula of Cool Runnings. As Joe mentioned about the Jamaican bobsled team who joined the Winter Olympics, and you really follow the one character played by Leon. I don't know if he's been in anything since, but he doesn't make it as a runner into the Summer Olympics. So he says, I still want to go to the Olympics. So he
Doris, right?
says,
Doris Bandit.
Doris, yes.
Yeah. Someone
So,
knows.
and again, based on a true story. So if anyone interested, you can go out and read actually about the true story. And the Jamaicans end up making it to the Olympics. Uh, Amazing story. You always shed a bit of a tear at the end as they finish the race, and but just, and like I said, a classic. They go through their bumps and eventually, happiness. But very good movie. I always enjoy it. It tells you to never give up on your dreams, no matter what. And number four I have here is also mentioned by Joe, Field of Dreams. If you build it, he will come, and um, now Field of Dreams, of course. So that was 1989. Kevin Costner, James Earl Jones, Ray Liotta played Shoeless Joe Jackson, and um, Kevin Costner's character is kind of low on his luck. They buy this farm, and all of a sudden he hears these voices and tears up half of his crop in order to build this baseball field that for weeks on end nothing is done with. Then they start losing money, and so again it kind of follows the formula of uh dude, is anything going to happen? But uh I mean, it's been out for 20 years, Joe. We can kind of go into some spoilers. He eventually you see Shoeless Joe Jackson, who, for those who don't know about Shoeless Joe Jackson, he was thrown out of baseball for allegedly cheating in, I don't know, what was that, like 1910 or
Gambling, right?
something?
It was gambling.
Yeah,
It was kind
yeah,
of like
gambling on the World Series. Um,
the Black
so
Sox
they
scandal, I think it was called.
Right, right. So they come back and they play on the field, but only Kevin Costner's character can actually see them,
Yeah.
and it's very interesting. He goes around to different places and learns about people's stories about whether or how they wanted to play baseball, but they never got the chance, and so this baseball field turns into like this magical place, and um
We'd be really like I'm trying to think of the right word. I'm sorry not to interrupt you, but I thought about this when you talked about um Kevin Costner's character, who I think is also Ray. Actually, I think that was his name
yes.
in the movie, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, wasn't his father part of this group too? Isn't
Yes.
that the whole?
Well, and I don't know if I wanted to go into that spoiler,
I
but
know,
yeah,
but
it's at the very end, and grown men cry during this scene at the
I've cried.
very end, I must
I got the
say.
chills now.
Um,
Oh my god.
because so Kevin Costner's character didn't never had this great relationship with his father, and all these guys who've been playing, and it turns out one of them is his father, who had passed away, and he asks him to play catch with him, and a very tearful scene at the end. It's
And
very,
the
very good.
granddaughter, it's like his great grandfather. That was
Yes, yes,
me.
yep.
Like, oh my god, this little
So
girl is seeing her grandfather out there. It's yeah, that's
probably my favorite baseball movie. There are a lot of good ones. Some people may say like Bull Durham, or
yes.
Angels in the Outfield, or what's the Natural. A
For
lot of,
love of the
but
games
I love.
for love of the game with Kevin Costner. I almost put that on, but with
He
them in the
seems to
League
be
of Their
all
Own,
over the place in baseball movies, but
he's always
yeah.
in them. Yeah, definitely. Number four, Derek. What do you got
So,
for number?
well, that was number four.
Oh, sorry, number
So,
three.
number three, another one maybe people haven't heard of, but So this one's called The Fighter. So this is a boxing movie. Mark Wahlberg, Christian Bale, and Amy Adams are the three leads. So it's about Mark Wahlberg is technically the lead, but I think it's kind of him and Christian Bale are both the leads. He played, and it's based on a true story. Mark Wahlberg plays Mickey Ward, who is a Irish uh, Catholic boxer. Kind of at the not doing too well in the boxing world. His brother Dickie, played by Christian Bale, is the godsend brother, but he's in all these drugs. He's doing crack and all that stuff, so he's kind of a mess. But he had one good fight previous in plenty of years ago where he knocked down, I believe it was Sugar Ray Leonard. So he completely just goes off of that for the rest of his life, talking about, so he's the one training Mark Wahlberg's characters, and uh, Mark Wahlberg has like seven sisters and an annoying mother who all say you have to do stuff for the family, and you gotta, if Dickie, your brother, you gotta protect him. And so this is a really good story about um, I mean, it follows again all the cliches that you would think. Like eventually the family splits up, but then they come back together. Um, but he ends up competing all the way for a world title eventually, and great story. I think Christian Bale actually won an Oscar for the movie for his role. So another one I would definitely recommend to anyone. Um, Looking for but it's something that you forge your own path type of thing, and
Yeah.
that's what Mark Wahlberg's character, you got to kind of break away from the family sometimes. And
Hard work pays off too.
yes, so number two, one that Joe mentioned, Hoosiers. I'm a So when I talked about follows all the cliches, that was definitely not The Fighter. That's a little different, but that Hoosiers is one that
Oh my
follows all the
god. Oh
cliches.
my god.
You got the down on his luck coach, played by Gene Hackman, um, comes in. I believe he like punched or hit a player or something where he was
Yeah.
used to be at. Again,
Yeah.
kind of a true story, based on a true story, I guess.
Yeah.
So he comes to this small, he was in like New York or something. So he comes to this small Indiana town, and all they pretty much know is basketball. There's like 100 kids in the entire school, the entire high school. So, um, and the normal, the teacher love interest, and
Oh yeah.
and the star player who doesn't really want to play anymore, but oh well, we'll get him back to play, don't worry. And then the unconventional assistant coach who's a drunk, and but we have to lean on him in the time of a crucial point, which really
Right.
turns him around. So again, conventional feel good story, but I love the way they did it. And like you said, you're rooting for them all the way through, and
Yeah. Oh
when
yeah.
they make it to the championship game, and now it's definitely an old school movie. There's a lot of
The gyms were so
campiness.
bad. I
Yeah, there's
remember that. The
there's a
gyms
lot
were
of campy parts of that movie, but and the whole town who basically wants the coach out, and but hey, it's very fun, and a good story, and Gene Hackman does very well in that movie. So um which brings me to Joe, 1A and 1B. Actually,
oh,
I didn't tell you that, but it
surprise.
is but they kind of are the same, one in the same franchise. Rocky and Creed are my number one.
Uh,
Um
okay.
so, and I mean, Rocky, it's the ultimate underdog story, and so for those who don't know Rocky, I don't know how you haven't seen Rocky before. I would go see Rocky 1.
Yeah,
If you don't see
start with
Rocky 2, Rocky 3, Rocky 4, once you start getting into Ivan Drago and his steroids and everything, it gets to be a little iffy. But um, they start to come back then in Rocky Balboa, which is the sixth movie. That was very good.
I like
Um,
that. I saw
but
that.
I truly loved the first movie first. It was very well told and obviously won an Oscar. Um, just tells the story of just this down on his. I seem to have a lot of boxing movies in here. I just kind of
You have a
noticed.
couple. You have a
Um,
couple.
yeah, down
All
on
right.
his luck boxer in Philadelphia, um, and it turns out that the heavyweight champion Apollo Creed, played by Carl Weathers, um, his scheduled opponent isn't able to do it, so they kind of get this rando. He's supposed to do it in Philadelphia, so he gets this random guy, Rocky Balboa, and Rocky doesn't take it for granted. He gets his amazing trainer Mickey and his friend Paulie, and then of course there's the love story with Paulie's sister Adrian and yo Adrian, and we but it's a great story about the underdog, and he really trains as hard as he can. Everyone knows the song, the steps. You've probably been on the steps in Philadelphia and running up the steps, and now the Rocky
That's
statue is
fine.
there. It's pretty crazy. Um, and but it's just I love that movie. And um, spoiler alert, I'll let people leave. 3, 2, 1. He loses, but he comes way closer and goes toe to toe with the heavyweight champion that no one would have ever guessed in a million years.
And the
So
friendship they then have then, like that's
yes,
huge. They
yes.
get to be their friends, and Apollo is a big part of Rocky's life going forward. And then things
I
happen, but
was always disappointed that they decided to get rid of Apollo Creed. I never liked that move, but
the thing is
um
though, the way I think, I'm sure a lot of people that love this series, even probably more than us, that you got to think about, like, and I don't want to give away what happened, but since we know, we will
go
no,
ahead,
yeah,
Joe.
we no, it's fine. We'll just say that sometimes life happens and then you have to persevere. And I think Rocky had that perseverance. And the situation with Apollo, it was tough for him, but he, like you said, like it's one of those things. And I think that we still talk about it today. And that wasn't very that was a long time ago, the movie. So
Yeah.
that tells you something, right? That
Well,
tells you what time
and
it
I
is.
will say I'm going to spoil it anyway because uh, I may even let. I love Creed as well, which is
Right.
the spin-off of the Rocky movies. And for those that don't know, in Rocky 4, I believe, Carl Weathers' Apollo Creed comes out of retirement because he wants to take down this big Soviet Union
Russian.
steroid buff. He ends
Right.
up dying in the ring. So, which brings Rocky to train and avenge
Fuels
his
him.
death, and
Yes.
um, which that is actually my guilty pleasure favorite movie just for that reason. You got to hate the Soviet Union, right? So,
Rocky Four.
anyway,
Yes.
so Creed is about Adonis Creed, who is Apollo Creed's son, and he grows up without a father, and he wants to be a boxer just like his dad was. So he goes to uh, none other than Rocky Balboa to train him. And now that is a story, or that is a movie that uh, when he's running through the streets of Philadelphia, it's almost like you're there running with him.
Yeah.
And
Under
in
the
both
salt
of those
blankets.
movies,
Yeah.
really,
Oh yeah.
well, I would definitely recommend it, Joe. And
Great
there are some
fighter.
great scenes where you're it's all one take. There's no cuts. This one fight is all in one take. Like he's taking hits, he's falling down, he's still getting up, but you see the camera panning around. It's all one take. I can't imagine how difficult that is to do.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
then I know he even got knocked out once. I never even said Michael B. Jordan is, and he's very good. He is one of the
Yeah, he's a
best
good
actors
actor.
in the world right now.
Yeah, Michael
Um,
B. Jordan.
but he actually ends up taking a punch, I know, and getting knocked out in real life because he did it for the movie. So,
Right. Oh
but
my.
a great movie, great movie.
Okay.
I
Great.
would definitely
Interesting.
recommend it. But I think we hit our 30-minute mark perfectly, Joe. Um, so I'm not sure if we know what we're going for next week yet. Stay tuned. I believe we'll probably run into some sort of NFL or something, right? So, any last words, Joe?
Well, I just want to say that, as I always say, that this show was definitely different, but it was a lot of fun to do. Um, I will say keep posted about our Facebook information and also on the Timeout with Derek and Joe, the page, because next Thursday, I think we're going to have a really interesting show because we're going to come to another list. As far as Monday, if Derek can do Monday or whether we do Tuesday, whatever is easier for you, of course, with you have plans over the weekend, which I totally understand. I'm okay with, yeah, possibly NFL. Let's not rule out if there's any big wins in college football, upsets going forward, because that could be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And also, baseball just non-tendered players. So now we're going to have see if players, and you're already starting to, things are kind of heating up with a couple teams. So even if it's some rumors, we might want to discuss them. So maybe we have a three segment show
Maybe,
on Monday or
maybe.
Tuesday, which would
Stay
be
tuned.
really, hey, let's go get it. Like, and NFL is all crazy right now with COVID. So, I mean, the Ravens and Steelers played yesterday, and I thought it was Sunday.
Yesterday.
Like,
Yeah.
like, so.
Yeah.
But no, Derek, it's been fun as usual, and let's hope we get more comments and likes, and don't be shy. Just we're the ones coming to you. You got to listen to us, but we want to hear your feedback. So please do that, and that's all I have for today.
Yeah, and so this was a fun little change up. So like I said, we'll try to do some random top 5 lists. So we hope you enjoyed our top 5 sports movies, top 11, top 7, whatever. But we appreciated giving it to you. So as we said, we did hear from a lot of you, so we appreciate you calling out your favorite sports movies. It was a very interesting list, that's for sure. A lot of different ones, but feel free to throw up your favorite top 5 or favorite sports movies in general. We'll try to come out with some of these lists moving forward. As we said, or as usual, follow us on podcast platforms, follow us on Facebook, send us an email, timeoutderekandjoe@gmail.com. For Joe Azelina, I'm Derek Ano. Thank you for taking time out of your day to spend some time with us. Take care.